Good evening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Talking Point. My name is Fahraaz. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. Spaza shops have become part and parcel of various communities dating back to the days of apartheid. It brings a sense of community, it brings a sense of reliability, but also at the same time, it brings a sense of convenience. And within townships, this has been the heart of economic development that has happened there. But what we have seen over the years is the deaths of children who have been buying from these Spaza shops, the food that has been contaminated in some instances. And on many occasions, this has brought the wrath of many of those living within the communities. Some communities have made allegations that with the influx of foreign-owned shops, this has been even more prevalent than it has before. This has also asked the question of what is government, be it either national or local, are doing to try and curb these regulations in trying to make sure that it's on the right path. And this is where today's discussion is going, because we have seen in the area of Naledi in Soweto the deaths of innocent children. All they wanted was a packet of chips or sweets, something that every child is deserved of in this world. And for them to go ahead and eat it and know that would be their final taste of something brings pain and misery to many of the parents whose loved ones have died because of that. We have now seen over the past few weeks government trying to ramp up its efforts in dealing with Spaza shops in terms of its regulation and compliance, but also looking at where they're getting or where they're sourcing these goods from. Today, my panelists to discuss this, I'd like to bring in Tarryn Daniels, who is the GS1 South Africa Business Development and Innovative Leader. And also joining us, I'd like to welcome Michael Ramatopo, who is the Deputy President of the South African Spaza and Tuckshop Association. Let me start off with you, Michael. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here. Tuckshops, I mean, I've just mentioned it. Its importance really within the South African economic landscape, especially when you're looking at the economic viability that it brings within this. Michael, are you there? Okay, well, I'm going to bring in now Tarryn into this discussion while we try and get Michael into this. Tarryn, I think your organization is more on the sourcing of goods and the importance with regards to that. I talked to us about how GS1 South Africa, I beg your pardon, plays this role in trying to go ahead and make sure that compliance is done in the best possible way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks for the opportunity. So what we actually are as an organization of GS1, it's quite a big secret, but the GS1 actually stands for global standards or one global standard. And what that actually entails is we are trying to make sure that there is a seamless supply chain experience across the world using global standards for supply chain. So if I can simplify it, our most commonly used standard that we have invented around the world is something that we all know as a barcode. The barcode in its quiet modesty is simply an ID number. It's the ID number that you can attribute to the ID number in your ID book or your ID card. And that ID number actually opens up information about a product when it is interrogated in an information system. So the important thing that we are trying to achieve here is to ensure that there's a seamless shopping experience. The unique part about South Africa and our informal system is that we do have the Spaza shops, and it is a more of an informal method of trade. But as GS1 South Africa, and we are a sister company to the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa, we are trying to educate everybody along the supply chain, including the informal supply chain, to say you can share information, key information about products with the informal sector if you are manufacturing a product. And that terminology that's well known throughout the world is a term that we refer to as traceability. Traceability is a standard that we've developed, just like we developed the standard of the barcode, that actually allows supply chain players to share information about products, critical information like a best before date, a lot or expiry dates, a batch number. Apart from the mandatory legal information that is required by law for you to place on a product, like where was this thing produced, who is the producer, how do I get in touch with the manufacturer if I have concerns, be it through a helpline or, a toll-free helpline or even an email address. What we need actually with our informal sector is for them to be able to be educated on what information they need about the products, and also for our consumers to be educated as to how do I interrogate a product if I have concerns about the safety or the ingredients or, the origin or even the legitimacy of their product. Is it a legit product? As opposed to, is it a fake product? So we're basically trying to bring the formality of retail and wholesale over into the informal sector by using these global standards that we actually develop across the world.
We just managed to get Michael back. Michael, thank you so much for joining us again. Michael, the question I asked, of course, I think everyone understands really the importance of, the Spaza shop to the communities around those areas, especially the townships. And this is an economy that really thrives in making sure that not just the community benefits, but these entrepreneurs who want to go ahead and start a Tuckshop and are able to earn something from that.
Yes. Good afternoon to everyone, first of all, and thanks for the opportunity. Yes, I mean, Spaza shops have been part of our community since times of apartheid, since it was the only kind of businesses as South Africans we were allowed to operate, as Black South Africans we were allowed to operate. So Spaza shops are a very, very, very key thing, hence the word Spaza. It comes from a long history of Black South Africans here. I mean, at that time, when we say Spaza, it was because conveniently all these small anyana things like 1 kg sugar, 500 gram sugar, you could only buy them from Spaza shops. But if a Spaza shop sold something like 12.5, big things, they were not allowed. They were people were allowed to go shop in big malls like OK and other establishments that were open at the time. So yes, Spaza shops, it's the core of our economy as Black people.
Michael, Tarryn made an important point about, the traceability of goods. Now, what happens is, of course, at Spaza shops, because it is the informal sector, there seems to be a bit of a challenge with regards to that. Now, what we have seen, over the last few weeks is a heightened call for there to be even more traceability on products. We saw the deaths of these school children, and anyone who's a parent, I mean, even if you're not a parent, you would feel it for the children that have, of course, passed away. It's been a bit of a challenge for Spaza shops, hasn't it? And we're going to touch, of course, on, really those who are owned by the locals and those who are owned by foreigners in the country. How this has really brought about a challenge with regards to the sector, Michael. And I think your organization has really been, grappling with this challenge for the last few weeks.
It's not only the last few weeks. Even last year, it's been a couple of years now. I mean, campaigning and advocating this issue of illicit goods. It's a very serious thing because 2013, 2014 is the reason why so many of our people lost their jobs. I mean, when I say jobs, I mean in the informal economy. I mean, one Spaza shop could actually hire two South Africans. My sister, if I'm the owner, my sister gets a job, my mother gets a job, and we all work in the Spaza shop, and it really sustains us. It's really sustains us, the Spaza shops. But now, because of this unfair competition, of which we did report to the Competition Commission, of which they decided to do a retail investigation in 2018. And then they came up with all sorts of recommendations that they came up with. Although the recommendations, we were not satisfied with the recommendations that they came up with. So it's in our hands, the community, the Spaza shop owners or the Spaza shop people who are now become landlords. It's in our hands to decide what happens next, since we see all that is happening. Do we decide to not lease our shops to foreign nationals? Because before I rented out the Spaza shop, I was the Spaza shop owner. That's the reality.
After the break, we continue this conversation. We're going to be touching on regulations and compliance. How many Spaza shops across the country are following that? And those who are following it, are they really at a disadvantage given the stereotyping that has been hit with regards to the sector? This conversation continues after the break. Welcome back to Talking Point. Regulation and compliance. This has even been in a sharper focus now over the last few weeks with regards to the informal trading, Spaza shops, Tuckshops. Tarryn, I want to bring you in. You mentioned something important with regards to barcoding. Now, in the last few weeks, when you've been listening to residents of these communities, a lot of them have been saying, and I am going to speak on foreign shops because this is where a lot of the gripe has been with regards to the residents of these communities. And they've been saying the shops that have been owned by the foreigners tend to have either expired goods, number one, or they are getting goods which are not regulated by the South African Bureau of Standards. Has that been something that you've looked at, Tarryn, from GS1's perspective? Has there been a sort of investigation with regards to that? Because especially goods that are perishable, it really does pose a danger to the communities that are living and these tuck shops are being operated in.
Yeah, so I mean, through our relationship with our sister company, the Consumer Goods Council, we are going to educate the informal sector on what is required from a regulatory perspective. Our country is very, very blessed in that we have some of the best regulations, but it can be argued whether these are being enforced to, the correct level or degree. There are important factors that can cover the need for product safety, such as food quality, food handling, food placement. These are all regulatory elements that are non-negotiable for, being able to trade products. The thing that I want to bring to the forefront, though, is the transparency that is needed and the compliance that is needed, whether it is a foreign national running the shop or whether it is a South African. There is compliance and transparency conformance that is needed from them in terms of at least being able to show who their suppliers are of those goods and what the information about those products are in the event of there needing to be a recall or an investigation into a product that is, iffy. So I think the conversation around regulations and whether it's a local seller or whether it's a foreign seller, we all need to comply to the laws of this country. I think that the call to action would be better enforcement and more informative enforcement from government officials. And when it comes to regional operations like a Spaza shop, normally the municipalities are the ones who actually make the requirements known. And the enforcement side, I think that that's a call to action that we all together need to say to them. I mean, are we checking these things on a regular basis? Are there some form of audits that compliance to regulations are being done? What also elements of education are we bringing to the consumer? What should they be looking out for? Because if you consider our larger members that are subscribing to GS1, if you think about who are using standards for identifying products, they are your larger manufacturers, even your medium and small manufacturers. Everybody knows that in order to sell a product, you need to have a barcode on it. And in today's world, it's becoming even more advanced that I can scan a product using my mobile phone and I expect to get information back about that product. That is a minimum requirement that a consumer should expect. And if I can just add how the GS1 South Africa is assisting, we are trying to ensure that each and every product that gets registered with our barcode, we are loading that information onto a consumer safety app that we have developed. And we are encouraging brand owners to say, you are responsible to share the correct information about that product so that consumers can also lead themselves in terms of the buying decisions that they make, knowing what they consume before they consume it. And today, whether you are in Naledi or in Sandton, we all have a smartphone. We all have at least a minimalist access to data. And consumers need to be empowered to protect themselves wherever anybody else is falling short.
Michael, and that comes to it comes to you. We actually just lost Michael there because I think what the conversation or the question there is just how much his organization is going ahead and trying to, work with regards to the compliance and adherence to that. And I'm going to stay with you, Tarryn, as we try and get Michael back in. There's always been that challenge, hasn't it, in terms of trying to make sure that if you have somebody coming out of the country that really wants to, with the right intention, wants to go ahead and make a living, open up an informal trading because maybe this is the only way he or she can go ahead and do it. But there are certain challenges that they are presented with. And of course, I think we know that it takes quite a long time for Home Affairs and that to grant, whether it's visas or temporary citizenship. So for anyone who's actually watching this broadcast right now and asking, okay, so I'm a foreign national, I want to establish a shop in South Africa, but I need to follow certain standards. I mean, what would be the process for them to go ahead and do that so that wherever they are, they know full well with a clear conscience that they are trading the right way, but also they're sourcing products from the right person?
Absolutely. And I think if their intention is to open up a business and to, supply communities in a good sense, then they should be willing to find that information. And there are institutions like the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa, ourselves, GS1 South Africa, the Department of Agriculture itself, the local municipalities, whereby if you inform them of what your intentions are, most of the time there are requirements that they need to get, like a certificate of compliance. They need to have a basic food handling certificate that shows that their facilities have been visited and that they are, compliant in terms of how they're setting up the products. There are these preliminary standards that need to be adhered to. If they are willing and wanting to operate, then they need to be able to reach out and find this information and get the support that they need. And we have to eradicate this business of having a representative doing everything for these guys in terms of compliance. They really need to get down to the gist and understanding of the consequences. And one of the most important elements is transparency. They need to be willing to share where these products are coming from. And if they are willing to do that, there are entities like ourselves that are going to come up with practical solutions, like traceability programs that's going to protect them in the event of an issue arising, because we'll be able to look at, where does this product come from? Where did it go to before it got to me? Or where did I then sell it to? So that there's this chain of command that allows us to eradicate the problems sometimes before they spread and, become a threat to consumer public health. So there are lots of sources, and these people need to be willing and open to get this education and to be compliant and to be transparent. That's the most important thing.
After the break, we continue this conversation. We hope to get Michael back on because we want to talk about, the compliance and regulations. And he mentioned something with regards to illicit goods that they themselves, as the South African Spaza and Tuckshop Association, are trying to eradicate, so that fair goods, authentic goods, are being sold at establishments that are registered with them. We'll have more for you after this break. Welcome back. We're happy to have Michael Ramatopo back with us. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I want to get to an important point that Tarryn had raised with regards to, the education of the illicit goods. And you've mentioned earlier on where you said your organization's really trying to make sure that illicit goods are not filtering into these Spaza shops and tuck shops. Talk to us about some of the challenges that your organization is going through in trying to curb that, because it really does present certain challenges, and then a lot of it may even go unnoticed.
Issue of illicit goods is very, very expensive, if I may say. It is expensive, and as a non-profit organization, we really, really struggled, and we saw a lot of our Spaza shop or shops closing down, and there was nothing for us to do. Where we organized the march, government ignore us. Where we organized, every time we organize the march, government will make like they gonna respond back in 14 days, but nothing happens. Until we decided whereby we will unite with other civil movements. And around about 2021, it's where our advocacy became stronger, and then now we're seeing the fight against illegal immigration, because we saw that if we as Spaza shops and we are closing down, that means we are losing members. That means no membership fees are being paid. That means soon we're going to die as an association, because we can't represent people who don't comply with our laws. We can't represent them. At least the South African Spaza shops, we can represent them and push them to get proper licensing with the municipalities. If they want to sell food, there are documentations that we have assisted them applying for. So it's a problem of non-compliance, but now it seems as if there are parties that are taking advantage of the non-enforcement of laws in this country.
I want to stick on that question, Michael, because, again, these very same communities, a lot of their complaints and a lot of their gripes have come through foreign-owned shops. They've said they're not willing to comply. They'll sell goods the way they want to sell it. They'll sell it at their price, and they don't really care about what the rules, regulations, compliance comes down to. And this, of course, happened when these children from Naledi went ahead, bought these products there. And, of course, we saw the result with regards to that, the tragic deaths of these children. This has brought the wrath of the communities. And I think all of us do not want to have a scene or a moment where xenophobia takes through, because it's not what we want in this country. But, Michael, you... From the association's perspective and the Spaza shops that they represent, Are they having that same gripe that a lot of the communities are having, that we will adhere to the rules, we will comply to what is there, but sometimes certain foreign-owned shops, and I think we need to get away from saying all of them, because I would like to believe that not all of them are in that same boat, but those who don't want to comply, is that some of the frustration that your members are feeling right now?
You see, in 2014, there was a minister at the time of it was a new ministry which was called the Department of Small Business Development.
Yes, yeah.
It was led by Lindiwe Zulu. Lindiwe Zulu brought us together with the foreign nationals and said, hey guys, what will it take for you to work with these guys? All we said is that, no.
Oh, we seem to have lost Michael there, but of a challenges with regards to his network. We hope to get him soon. Tarryn, I want to go to this question, and it's quite an important one, because what had happened last year when meat products, there was a recall of a lot of the goods, and I think a broadcaster, ENCA, did quite a thorough investigation with regards to that. Some of this investigation had found that a lot of them were gone beyond its best before date. And this was not happening in Tuckshops. These were actually happening at the retailers, the Pick n Pays and the Checkers, for that matter. How do we stop that? How do we regulate that? Because if it's happening in big stores like that, then a lot of people are going to look at it and say, well, this is a bit worrying, because you would think them as the big brands and you would trust them to go ahead and buy the products.
Absolutely. And I think we must all agree that there are quite a lot of complexities in the value chain and in the sourcing of products. And the route from the manufacturer all the way to the shelf or into the basket or past the till into the hands of consumer is not every single day a straightforward one. And a lot of the challenges that we have or that are in any country will sometimes have an effect on the route to market of a product. It could have been, look, I'm not sure of the detail of the outcomes of that, but if just think about the effect that load shedding has on a product's route to market. If that product needed to be refrigerated at a specific temperature for all of the time, and that cold chain broke, it could have caused an effect on the product. If a truck was transporting products like cold meats or meats to a destination and there was a breakdown, or there was an increase of traffic due to maybe load shedding and traffic lights being out, or an accident on the route, there are so many things that can take place in the supply chain that can end up having an effect on the product itself when it reaches its destination. And this is why the formal retail sector actually adopts these global standards that GS1 creates, so that they can have a hand on the pulse of how the supply chain is performing on a daily basis. So it's not just about using the barcode to check out at the point of sale or at the till. They actually use the barcode of every product before that product is even leaving the manufacturer. When it comes off the production line, it is then planned. A certain amount of product needs to go on a specific truck, and it needs to follow a specific logistical route to reach a specific distribution center and then be channeled in that specific region. So I think my answer to your question is that complexities are all over. GS1, the entity that I'm representing, we develop global standards to deal with those problems, but across the world. So it's not uncommon for, things to go wrong, for things to break. But what's important is that there can be delineation or an identification of where did something go wrong and what is the effects on that problem down the stream and up the stream. From whence did that product come? Who was affected by that breakdown in the value chain? And when it comes to the consumer now, how do we identify where that happened and how is it going to affect if we allow it to move forward? So this business of sharing critical data across the value chain of a product is what we actually look on. We have global working groups that we are a part of with other countries around the world. We look at these common challenges and we say, how do we eradicate this? How do we keep a finger on the pulse of the supply chain? And we do this by sharing critical information with our trade partners. If I'm a manufacturer, I let the retailer know. If I'm a retailer, I let the logistics partner know, and then everybody gets to make critical decisions that will amount to protecting the consumer ultimately, and also avoiding, time and efficiency losses as well. This is a very intricate situation of a product's value chain, and we're working very hard with retailers, wholesalers, manufacturers, SMMEs. And I think that for us, what we're learning about this ongoing situation is that we need to work more with the informal sector. And we're looking at partners like the WNR so that we can come together, form a solution to these problems, and then go out and start to educate, because this honestly cannot continue anymore.
I couldn't agree more with you there, Tarryn. And the next segment is going to focus on government. What is government doing? The Johannesburg Council has gone ahead and developed a bylaw enforcement team to address the flouting of regulations by Spaza shop owners. The question comes, are Spaza shop owners still going to go ahead and adhere? And is the law enforcement agencies going to go ahead and enforce it, and enforce it quite harsh? This discussion continues after the break. Welcome back to Talking Point. Unfortunately, we have lost Michael. He seems to be having continuous network issues. So we are going to continue this conversation with Tarryn Daniels from GS1 South Africa. Tarryn, government, I guess everyone knows that they have such a huge and influential role to play in this. What more do they need to do to try and make sure that everything is above board in this sector, especially in this sector, which is really one that comes into sharp focus every time there's an incident within it?
I honestly think, and the organization at large believes, that we want government to hear our call to action. And the call to action that we are giving is to say, recognize global standards that are successfully implemented around the world and that can assist to eradicate these problems. In specific, what I am talking about is recognizing supply chain standards like the barcode, like traceability standard, and make sure that companies are using them so that we can have proper transparency. Traceability standard has so many benefits, and this is why our call to action is that government recognizes it. The only issue with a standard like the one we have is that standards are usually voluntary. But if you think about it, an industry like the retail and wholesale sector, which now even includes your online marketplaces like your Takealots, your Amazons, they understand the need for harmonized data sharing between themselves. They understand that if I am a retailer and I'm going to sell hundreds of thousands, if not millions of products in my outlets or online, I need to have full visibility of the information about those products, because when a consumer purchases it from me, and for example, if they get sick or, God forbid, they pass away, I, as the retailer, am responsible. And this is why retailers around the world, including in South Africa, have adopted global standards such as the barcode and traceability, because it gives you the ability to rapidly identify any product that is problematic. If we think back a little bit further to the issue that took place in the country with the cold meats, the Polony saga, at first there was a little bit of confusion and shock and a bit of panic in the retail supply chains. But if you look properly at the days following those, revelations or their outcomes, retailers were very, very swiftly able to identify which products were problematic from speaking to consumers. And then they quietly went about their way of excluding these specific brands from their shelves and then returning them back to the manufacturer. You can only do that if you are using these supply chain standards. You can scan the barcode, information will appear on, the retailer systems to say, we received 5 pallets or 4, tons of the thing, and we sent it to the Western Cape, we sent it to the Eastern Cape, and then they can go back and nicely pick these things out of their supply chain and remove them and remove the threat of this. So our call to action as GS1 South Africa is that we want the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health to recognize global supply chain standards as a solution to assisting with this, because traceability standards, they are proven to ensure consumer safety. They proven to give out increased transparency and accountability to those people that are bringing the products to the market. They even can give you market access, because if you go take a product overseas and you want to sell it there, all of the defining questions and regulations that you will be asked to adhere to there can be met if you have traceability in place. So truly, I feel that the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Health needs to come to the party, and they need to be open and willing to adopt global standards as a solution to this. And furthermore, as GS1 South Africa, we want to actually collaborate with the Spaza Association, and we want to maybe do something together after the show, whereby we can come up with a practical project end to end, working together on the ground and behind the scenes to try to eradicate this and try to maybe have strength in numbers.
I'll definitely have my producer of you. I'll give you through the number of Michael, because unfortunately, again, his network has been giving challenges where he cannot respond on this very same platform. To close us off, Tarryn, so a government through its Nat joints, through Operation Vulindlela, are conducting these oversight visits to the Spaza shops. And I think one of the most important things is that nobody really wants to scare those Spaza shops that are actually acting within the right framework, who are going ahead and complying. And I think an organization like yourself would really assist in trying to make sure that these Spaza shops who want to earn the right living, who want to work through the South African Revenue Service to pay tax, that they can go ahead and do it in a way that will continue to uplift the communities where they are.
Absolutely. I think there's a very important entity as well that must be brought into this conversation, whom we have a very good relationship with as GS1, and that is the wholesale and retail CETA, the WNR CETA. Together with the CETA and the relationships that we've maintained, we've come up with a few programs that we've targeted towards SMMEs. So you know how important it is for our localization efforts that small businesses can get retail space. So with the help of the WNR CETA, we've done education with these SMMEs and show them what does it take to be retail ready. And within this program, people that are small businesses who want to grow are being exposed to the requirements for compliance. We've also done this through a program called ITEMED, supported by the WNR CETA. That was where we worked with about 1,000 informal traders. And what we did was we trained them as well on food handling requirements, understanding how to, sell your stuff, and making sure that you can be identified as an informal trader if needs be, for whatever reason a person bought from you and got ill. So I think the proposal on the table from us is, let us partner with the Spaza Shop Association as well as the WNR CETA. Let us come up with programs. Let us work together to educate the consumer, because we can do much more together. And this is a job that we can't do on our own. Michael and his institution can't do on their own. And together, probably we can get government to pay attention to what we are saying and allow us to work together with them.
Tarryn, thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Point. We have come to the end of the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Tarryn Daniels, GS1 South Africa Business Development and Innovative Leader. We also had Michael Ramatopo, who is the Deputy President of the South African Spaza and Tuckshop Association. Unfortunately, his network has really been giving challenges, but we hope to have him soon on one of our shows. So that's all we have for you on Talking Point from myself, Fahraaz and the rest of the team in Johannesburg. We'll see you again same time, same place next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.